to introduce ourselves. We are an architectural office. Me and two colleagues, Jolanta and Wojtek Trompeta. We have our office in Essen, Germany, which is a city which is part of the big industrial region of the Ruhr, which has already been talked about. And so this is a region which is industrialized in the 19th century and which was decreasing in the 1950s to 80s. So we had, as you can see, a little ruin of a coal mine. So there's parts of that left. Most of it had been destroyed already. That started in the 50s, as I said, and in the 80s we stopped with that, and we thought maybe we can keep some of the industrial heritage to keep the character of our region, which is mostly developed by the industry. And the most important project we did in this context was this Zollverein coal mine, which is now a UNESCO World Heritage, which is in our city in Essen. And for example, we changed this building, which is a big coal washing plant. This is the situation before, and the situation after is we have a big museum inside of that building now. This is one of the examples I want to show you what we did already before I start to talk about Gempt. This is the interior, for example, of this huge machine, and this is what we introduced into the building. This is, for example, one of the staircases. Another project which is not done by us, but which is very important to understand what is happening in our region, is a big gas tank. You see here on highway, and next to it there is technical structures like high voltage power supply, and you have a gas tank, and this is typical infrastructure. But for example, this gas tank wasn't used anymore, and it was not demolished, but it was reused as a exhibition hall. You can now enter into the gas tank and you have a look inside, and it's like this. And everybody who was inside of the building will never forget this impression. For example, if you look up and look under the roof, it looks like that, which is quite beautiful. Nobody expected that. So you have to somehow bring the people to have knowledge about what is there already, because these rooms and these industrial buildings often are not reachable for normal people, only for the workers. And if you let people go in, they see that and they start to reuse it by getting knowledge of the beauty of the structures. Another project we have is this velvet weaving mill, which is a completely different context. You see, we are now in a city and people were working in that building too, producing velvet, and it was not used anymore. For example, this is the picture of the abandoned building when we started the planning, and this was reused for housing, for example, and we added balconies and greenery and whatever, and people love to live inside of this former velvet factory. Another project, or this is also part of that project, this is the production hall they had, and we kept the hall and we opened it to the public, and they started to do things inside of this former production hall, and today it's like a public space with a roof on top, so you have a complete different view on this beauty of the structure. I think this is the last project before I start with the Gempt Hall. This is a former pump house in a former steelworks, not used anymore, and we reused it for a restaurant. So this is the exterior view. So there is a new facade with new material, and this is the interior view before we started the rebuilding, and this is the interior view after. You see, there's still the steel construction visible and things that tell a story about what it was before, but we added elements so you can now go there and eat something. Okay, let's go to the project I have to explain in little more detail. We are here, you see on the map, whole Germany, and in blue, this is our part of Germany. We have a federal state, so there's different states. This one is North Rhine-Westphalia, and the red point shows this place where we did the project. It's part of the northern part of North Rhine-Westphalia, and this map shows, as you can see, in different years, the program which is in Germany called Regionale. So this is a regional financial support program, and in 2004, the region in the very north had this financial support, and in this region they had the project I'm introducing to you. This is the whole catalog of the whole program in 2004, and in that program they made a competition on a former factory in this little town, which is named Längerich. This is, as you can see, a quite rural town. It is not a big city. It is not the Ruhr area. We have steelworks and coal mines, but we have little industrial structures. For example, in this town, there was a factory for producing wire. So there were many people of the town working in that factory, producing wire. And that factory was also abandoned. So here on that slide, you see the existing building, not in use anymore. And on the right side on top, you see the people working inside that building in former times, and that was gone already. So you had like a ruin. Nobody was really thinking of that, as you can see, to be useful for whatever. So they tried to find out what can that structure be used for. And they were looking for an, as it is now called, social and cultural center, which is more or less a assembly hall for the people living in the city. And they made an architectural competition, and that we won. And we looked into the building, and we found out that we have a quite useful reinforced concrete structure with this bows, which is maybe not that as beautiful as the one we just saw in Paris, but it is for this little town, it is something special. You don't have structures like that in the town as long as you don't look at industrial buildings. So this is a quite special kind of quality. There were not only reinforced concrete structures, but also steel skeleton structures. So we decided, okay, we keep part of that. Here you see an overview, an aerial view of the whole factory in this small town. Here in red, this is all the wire factory. And most of that factory had been demolished. So they made a new urban development with housing, but they decided to keep a little part of these factory buildings, which is now visible in that red outline. And that part of the building is an aerial view of the situation today, is still there. Everything else has been demolished. And as you can see, there is already some new housing on the former industrial site. Okay, so we have reduced the amount of buildings to a very small part of it. This is part of the building we had to look at during the design phase, so when we did the competition. And as I said, we found out there's good structures in reinforced concrete and steel skeleton, and there are some additions on the outer part of the building, and we threw away all that. So the only part of the building that is kept is the yellow part of the building. The rest we demolished. So we had, in the end, this to be the project. And I can explain it a little more detailed. This is our design model. You can see that we looked at the structure and what can be the quality of the structure. And we wanted it to be quite transparent, to have a look inside from the outside, but not to add anything new. The structure we used for the assembly hall was the structure that was already there. So you can still understand how the building was built during the phase it was producing the wire. And that were drawings we did in the competition phase. So with that was the image we thought this could have next to the new housing projects, people living there. And yeah, this is just images. So when we won the competition and had the contract to rebuild the building, we started first with demolishing things. So we cut out the part we needed and threw away everything else. So this is like a subtraction strategy. So here you see how the building looked like during the first phase of our building site. And this is a cross section through these three halls. The two on the left side are the concrete, reinforced concrete structures, and the one on the right side was this a bit higher steel skeleton structure. And this is the floor plan, and you see there is not only the structure, but we added something. For example, in orange now visible, this is smaller rooms like kitchen and storage and some stairs, because we added also in some part of the building a second level. And you see this is one addition. The second is we let this whole space completely open as the assembly room. You can see there is already seating and a stage in our drawing. And this is thought to be the foyer, the entry of the building. And for the entry from the outside, we thought to keep one axis and two of the bows, and don't close it with a facade, but let it like an open roof in front of the main entrance. That was in general our strategy, how to reuse the existing structures. So here you have another kind of drawing how these levels are added. So in the main, we have a ground floor and we have only little first floor level. So then what to do with the facade? So as you can see, because we cut out the structure, we didn't have facades, or we only had part of the facades, but we had this load-bearing structure, which is now here visible in concrete. And we thought of how to make a new facade to this building. And that is how we did it. You see there's still the structure visible, the main columns are there, and we filled up the space between with elements made of plum and made of, we call it corten steel, so this rusty steel plate. So this is what it's in the end. You see the new doors, you see the steel and the plum elements on the facade. This is how it looks today. And this is how it's made. It's just a little detail of the facade, how the elements are installed on the building side. The only existing facade we kept was this one, which was made of brick. We found it wonderful and usable. So we repaired this part of the outer facade, and this is like in the end looking like this. On the left, you have this brick wall, which was already there, and on the right, the new added facade made of metal. Another view of that facade. And this is the main entrance, the first sketch. Now it's 20 years ago, I see. This is a simple sketch, then they make a more detailed drawing, and in the end, this is the building site. Here you see what I tried to explain. We didn't add anything. We just decided, okay, we start with the building one axis behind the bow, which is the outermost first wall. So we had an open roof already without building it. It was already there. And this is like a loggia or an open entry. Here you see the facade to be installed in one of the bows. And this is how it looks today with this entry idea. And this is the view in the evening, and the lights inside turn on, it looks like that. And that was our idea of transparency. So people are looking at the building and feeling invited to come in. That is what we wanted. And if you look at our model, I think, yeah, it is already almost that what we wanted exactly when we thought of how to go on with the existing structure. And just some images from the interior. Here you see the building site when we started to repair the concrete structure, and we added this, what I told you, the facades, and with some additional rooms. And parts of the building is the second layer, the first floor. And this is the main assembly room, which now has new heating, new glass roof, but the main structure is still there. And here's another view of the building site. One thing I still think about is how to deal with the surface, because we have in this existing buildings, if you deal with existing structures, you can always tell stories about the history if you keep the existing surface of the walls or the columns, because they all show traces of what was done, like yeah, signs or whatever, maybe also dirt or damages from the time people were working in the building. In this special project, we couldn't keep that because of the need to repair the concrete. But if it's possible, we have done it in other projects. It's a very interesting story of how to reuse existing buildings. So this is the view of the finished building with new added partition walls in glass, a look from the foyer into the main assembly room. This is the big hall, how it looks today, before the people started to use it. Another view of the big hall, another view from the first floor into that hall. And this is how it's used today. It's for public use, so people come there and celebrate things, and they have like concerts and events and big whatever they need to do. So in the end, before it's just a dirty ruin, and after it's a very inviting public space. And I say thank you for listening to my lecture.